Now for today's program. David Broza is an internationally renowned Israeli singer-songwriter, recognized for his dynamic guitar performances and humanitarian efforts. His signature sound brings together the influence of Spanish flamenco, American folk, rock and roll, and poetry. Social justice and peace advocacy are embedded in David's work. At the core of his social justice work is the belief that music is a platform for dialogue and tolerance. His 1977 hit song, Yeh Tov, Things Will Be Better, remains an Israeli peace anthem. With over 40 albums released, many of which are multi-platinum in English, Hebrew, and Spanish, David continues to tour globally, both as a solo musician and with his various musical projects. He is the founder of the nonprofit 1 Million Guitars, which gives underprivileged school children around the world handcrafted guitars and the foundation of a musical education. His latest venture, the recently released album Tefila, Prayer in Hebrew, is music for the Shabbat service, blending time-honored traditional prayer lyrics with new musical compositions that encompasses several genres, from pop and jazz to gospel, folk, and classical. Joining David today is Amy E. Schwartz, Moment's opinion and book editor, as well as editor of the magazine's popular Ask the Rabbi section. Before coming to Moment, Amy was a longtime editorial writer and op-ed columnist at the Washington Post, covering education, science, and culture, and where she was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize in commentary. Amy is president of the Non-Denominational Jewish Studies Center in Washington, D.C., and speaks and runs workshops on topics of Jewish commentary, Psalms, and literature nationwide. Please welcome David Broza and Amy E. Schwartz.
And welcome to David Broza. It's very exciting to be here with you. I have never enjoyed preparing for a Zoominar more than I did listening to this new music and these tracks. If I'm not mistaken, you've already had the big opening service where this music was done live for the first time at Temple Emmanuel. Can you, this was last Friday night, can you tell us a little bit about that and how it went?
Wow. First of all, hello, everybody. And hello, Amy. It's really a real honor for me to be here and speak about Tefila, which is a brand new project. It took me 3 years to prepare it, but it just came out about a week ago. And last Friday, we had indeed the debut, the first performance of this project live. I'd committed to perform for the Temple Emmanuel in New York City during the next year, 10 times. Every first Friday of every month. And so it was, we didn't know what to prepare for. You know, this project brings on stage about almost 30 musicians, including the choir, including string section, horn section. It's a phenomenal array of musicians and a lot of music that was written for this, and intricate and beautiful arrangements arranged by my friend Omer Avital, an incredible Israeli jazz musician, bass player. So that's just the nutshell of trying to give a background. And over 1,000 people turned up for the first performance of this. And it's really aimed at bringing in a new generation between 20 and 40-year-olds to the service. It was brilliant. And there's, after that, there's food and wine served to everybody, which was catered by Michael Solomonov from Zahav from Philadelphia. So you can imagine, it was brilliant, a brilliant night. And I can't wait for the next one, which is June 3rd.
So if for the non-New York people on this Zoominar, people who maybe don't know this space, Temple Emmanuel is this incredible, crazy, spectacular building in Midtown Manhattan. Looks like a cathedral, a fabulous space. And it's big enough for this thing. And we have a clip of, I was going to ask, how did it go? Or did people get up and dance? But we have a clip. And so let's just show you a little bit of how this went. This is from the Mi Chamocha part of the Friday night service. Looks like fun. For
It's
those
a blast.
for those who didn't notice, it's also the pages of the Siddur. I saw this in the liner notes. Are actually projected on the walls, so you don't need a
Mhm.
book.
Yes, well, the whole idea is, as the director of ceremonies there, of the program director of Temple Emmanuel, Gadi Levi, who had this vision of me doing this, which we'll talk about later, but was the idea that nobody should hold a siddur or any notes or any printed material in their hands. It should all be there, available. So yes, there's we put a lot of effort and invested a lot in doing a real light show and projecting on the walls with the highest and most modern technology that there is. So it's really, you're not even noticing that it's kind of printed on. I mean, it looks like it's engraved in the walls. It's beautiful. It's really, I mean, I want to watch it. So I'm not going to be able to, but I know what I'm giving to the people who will attend these events, these services.
Mm-hmm. So I know that the story, can you tell the story? I think you've told it a lot of places, of how this assignment and this music came to you. I know it's a great departure from your long, brilliant career as a singer-songwriter, but this is such a departure. Can you talk about how it came about?
Yes, well, I haven't really been speaking much about it. It's only been a week or 10 days that it's out. First of all, it's interesting that you call it departure, but overall, it's not even an inch of a departure. That's what surprised me. When I got the call from Gadi Levi from Temple Emmanuel, I thought this he's got to be calling the wrong guy. This can't be. I mean, there's no way that they thought of me being the singer-songwriter, right? And I work in Spanish and Hebrew and in English, and I work with American poets, Spanish poets, Israeli poets. But no, that was absolutely his thought. And I said, okay, listen, I'm not going to commit. I'm not sure that I deserve this, that I'm the guy entitled to this, but let me sleep on it a few nights. Send me the email, and when I'm ready, I'll look into it. Now, this was just the beginning of COVID. So we were literally, this was 3 years ago, April 2020. And it was 2 years ago, I guess. We were just going into like being locked up in our homes, in quarantine. It was me and my wife we have a wonderful little loft here in Tribeca, New York, but the streets were empty. Everything was empty. And I for the next 4 months, I went through my list for the day when I will not be working anymore, not performing, not traveling, and I can do anything I want, like other stuff, cook and read. And so I went through the whole list for about 4 months. I got to the end of the list, and I remembered that email that Gadi Levi sent me. So I opened it up and looked at the first prayer, Adlakat Ner Shel Yom Shishi, the candle lighting, took out my guitar, thought, okay, let's try something. And I got this beautiful, beautiful melody that came out. And I loved it. And then my wife pops her head in the room and says, what is this? Because she could hear it through the walls. It was so quiet here. And so that really encouraged me. So I put it down and went on about my other stuff. And the next day I opened another prayer. Altogether, I was sent 14 prayers. So for the next 14 days, I limited myself to writing one a day. And some of them came quickly. Some of them I had to study much more deeply, just like any poetry that I work with, any written verse that I turn to music. It's you have to live with it. I have to study it. I have to feel the inner rhythm and how does it relate to music, what kind of music comes out. And then my hands start playing, and then my ears direct the hands towards harmonic progression. And suddenly, before I know it, I have what I call as a song, but it's liturgical poetry, and verse. So obviously I give it the importance, but to tell you the truth, I give the same importance when I do Eliam Rector, American poet, or Jonathan Geffen, Meir Ariel, or Federico Garcia Lorca from Spain. These are just as beautiful pieces that I work on all my life. And I didn't give it too many thoughts, because I thought if I fall into this departure feeling, I might put myself in some kind of a corner, which is not what it's supposed to be. I want this to be, if I deliver this piece of work, which is an entire prayer. It's a Kabbalat Shabbat. I've got to be able to really love and want to sing it. And there's one thing about studying these lyrics, these pieces of liturgy, is that the Hebrew is so beautiful. And it's obviously my favorite language, it's my mother tongue. And I love to play with it in my mouth. I love to give it the music. And I was transformed by it. I was transformed into a place of creativity, inspiration, and didn't give it any more thought until I was done. And now looking back and think, this to myself, I say, well, this was written 600 years ago. This was written 400 years ago. This is more. And then suddenly trying to remember the original melodies that I knew as a child, which were passed on from my father to me and from his father, and so on, just as tradition goes. So the departure was only from my obstinance of not wanting to deal with it. And I embraced it and I fell into it. And then I had to find the right partner with whom to write the arrangements. But first I had to get through the hurdle of presenting all these 14 pieces and hoping that Gadi Levi and his staff, or whoever is in charge of deciding, would say yay or nay, would embrace it and say, wow. And it didn't take too long. And I recorded everything on the phone. It wasn't like I'm in a studio. I was locked up in a quarantine. And there was so much excitement from the other end that it made me want to take it on. Even then I was not committed to the project unless they felt that I was delivering the right thing. Because from me and my guitar to developing it musically the way I'd envisioned, and I did have a vision once I was working on it. I had a very clear vision of what I wanted. Mm-hmm. So, and this is what I ended up presenting, but we can talk more about that.
So it's like, it came out pretty much when you say you had a clear vision, is what, when you look at it now, that vision is what you accomplished. You
absolutely. Like. Absolutely. Wow. It took 2 years to do the whole thing. After the show, which is really the next step, to do it live after the show. I remember on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I was walking with an inner feeling that I had crossed another threshold, another level of musicality, which I had done 2 years before with another project of mine, which I'd never dreamt of, because my most recent album is an instrumental album, just me playing guitar, never singing, which I had never, ever thought I would do. And I was enticed and seduced to doing it by a great music executive, Steve Greenberg, who said that he's got all my albums, but he's missing one. And I'm thinking to myself, I'll send it to you. Which album am I missing? And at the time I said, no, you haven't recorded it yet. So these two, Steve Greenberg and Gadi Levi, are going to be in my pantheon of people who really, really helped me move to the next level of music like I'd never even imagined. I didn't think I'm capable, I'm not that kind of a musician. And look, now I'm walking around just my own house from room to room thinking, it's good. I can do it. It's like really amazing. I'm giving myself some kudos,
Well, what was that like to hear? I mean, I'm sure, hearing something in performance like that, or experiencing it in performance in front of an audience is always going to be different. But hearing people, praying this music, like, did you learn something new about it just from that? Did it feel different to you, having all these people, experiencing it as a prayer?
No, I'm not aware of anything yet, because I'm so consumed by performing it and by doing it justice and filling in that slot which Temple Emmanuel has given this work. I want to do it all the justice I can possibly do it. So and the audience has never heard it before. So even if they listen to the album, they still haven't had time to memorize the music or to be into it. And
singing along, yeah.
It's and this is the whole idea. Another, I guess, interesting thing about these prayers is that whether subconsciously or consciously, I knew I had to compose music that is very easy to adapt, to repeat. Right. Because these are mantras when you come to it at the end of the day. Being that it's in Hebrew and we're not in Israel, so it's not common language, it's a prayer language. And most people know Lechadodim by other melodies and Misha Berach by other melodies, and and Shema Israel by other melodies, even I. But I've forgotten those completely. I actually erased them for the duration of the project because I don't want, nothing is going to interfere with me recreating those moments for good or bad. And so when I'm sitting on stage and doing the first performance, I'm amazed that I'm so at ease with the music and so familiar with it and can actually perform it without having to make any big deal about the act of performance, make a big deal about the intent and pronounce every word to its utter meaning. So it's as close as it can be to the written verse, to the liturgy. And yeah, it's really amazing project. Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, people say that about Chazanut too, is that it's all about, just getting the words and getting the meaning through. And that's very different from a lot of contemporary music composed for the liturgy. I mean, somebody wrote about this and said, a lot of the modern settings of these prayers, they just take one phrase and they throw it around a lot and they repeat it a lot, but you've done every word.
As far as I know, every word I was sent.
Right.
There's many versions, even to those.
Yeah.
But if you send me a piece of liturgy or poetry or verse, I will set it to music. If this is what you asked me to do, I won't leave a comma or an exclamation mark out. It's there. It's beautiful, I'll tell you. But I guess with all these years, 45 years of professional musicianship and so many varied albums and so many collaborations with writers, brilliant writers in Israel, Meir Ariel, Jonathan Geffen, Nathan Alterman, and then the Lorca, Federico Garcia Lorca, Leon Felipe, the Spanish poets, and then the American poets, the Matthew Grahams, the Liam Rector, the Elizabeth Bishop, there's a long list. I've got so many albums dedicated to so much poetry. And each and every one of them is a walking miracle, holy person, for me, the man who writes his feelings on paper, which I can read, pick up, and immediately identify and feel him in my blood. And so this, I'm just, as I'm saying, I'm just so thrilled and happy and feel liberated by the fact that I have delivered it, not only on album, which is one thing, which was an experience in itself to record it, but now putting it live and standing on the stage with a great, wonderful Rabbi Joshua Davidson, who's the rabbi of Temple Emmanuel, who's just knew how to connect himself to my years of performance with his years of serving the community and being a rabbi. It was magical because he had selected such beautiful pieces to speak about and words to intertwine himself within the service, not being there all the time, just at certain moments, that I felt that we got the best show in town, Literally. This should excite every person, certainly the Jews in town, whether they're Orthodox or, of course, of all walks of Judaism. These are the same prayers that every synagogue in the world uses. So no matter what tradition you use, this is a new one and a new aspect. And as you said, the glorious building, the glorious synagogue, Temple Emmanuel, it's grand, it's the grandest it can be for a shrine. I want my music to fill, and I wanted the visuals to fill every inch of it, every eighth of an inch.
And you're giving this music away, right? Is that what I read?
This music is all, this music is, well, if any synagogue wants, we have all the written pieces, the music written, and they have the recording they can hear on Spotify and on any platform that they wish. And the synagogue is giving it away. That was their idea.
There was a suggestion that you might even go on the road at some point and train other congregations.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Why not?
So
I'm a traveling artist, traveling minstrel. No, I mean, I'd love to. This is a big, there's 27 of us, and then the lighting and the sound guys. It's a big entourage, but it's definitely like nothing you've seen before, nothing you'll hear until you hear this. It's So different.
Mm-hmm. So you said you told someone in one interview you did that you're old enough now to know where the beauty comes from in life. I thought it was a lovely quote, and I was wondering, do you think you could have written this when you were younger, or would it have been different, or wouldn't it have happened?
Such a great question. I've written this many, many, many times before, and I've always hid it in a drawer, the lowest drawer, furthest away from any ear that could hear it. I wasn't mature enough to understand the beauty and the simplicity, you know? And because, as I said before, these are supposed to be liturgical pieces that will be heard for the first time or second time, and the congregation will repeat them with you, then you have to make it simple. So and I didn't understand that or anybody's, if you read a line from any poem, or even from a phone book, and I read it, each one will have a different take, when to breathe, when to pause, when to enforce, when to give a crescendo or whatever. This is because each and every person in the world has his own heartbeat and his own way of interpreting what he sees. And beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and only the beholder. So I caught that moment, or that moment caught me. And maybe that is maturity, about being, a weathered and grown, perhaps, musician. And after 45 years of actually dedicating my life to this, maybe I knew how to recognize the simplicity and stop there and not try to build on it like I've done in the past. And maybe that makes it more accessible. And that's the secret to it all.
Yeah. So I have so many more questions, but let's hear some more music, if we could. The people have described the Lecha Dodi as kind of almost a flamenco thing. It starts simple and then it kind of has this bolero effect. So I don't think we'll do the whole thing, but can we tee up a little of that, and maybe then you can.
Yeah, but just to clarify, it is not so flamenco. The starting is my guitar playing. It's a lot more klezmer, traditional Hasidic, like we sing the original, but with a different melody. But sure, let's listen.
Let's listen.
I'm sorry, Amy, which one did you just say you wanted?
Lecha Dodi.
Okay.
You do Lecha Dodi?
I
mean, it's a 5-minute track, so not the whole thing, but some of it.
Okay, 1 second.
Unless, I don't know, do you want to hear the whole thing, David? Is that more?
No, I'm here for as long as you.
However, I'll let Suzanne. I'll let you decide how much.
You just whatever.
I think it's maybe we should hear the whole thing. Maybe one should go the whole way. It's quite long.
Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קום צאי מתוך ההפכה. רב לך שבת בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. תחמי על יד בן ישי בית הלחמי קרבה אל נפשי גאלה
Couldn't really just play half of that, I don't think. You couldn't really play just half of that. Had to do the whole thing.
I hear you. No, because it's built so beautifully. So I would like to turn the attention a little bit to my partner in writing the arrangements, because this is a huge piece. So I had envisioned. So when I grew up, I listened to something which comes from the Christian prayer. It's called Misa Criolla, Misa Criolla. In Spanish, Criolla. Mm-hmm. It's from South America. Magnificent piece of music. Everybody should listen to it. And I listened to the version with Mercedes Sosa, who's the mother of the voice of South America, of Latin America. And I was 15, 16, 17. Since those days, it's always with me, always in the background. Especially even on Shabbat mornings, I would put it on in Israel, in Spain, everywhere. And when Gadi Levi left this thing with me, if I do something, it'll be my version of what they did as a Misa Criolla. It'll be the Tefila, our prayer, as a big prayer for a big room. And so I was thinking, okay, well, I'll go to I need the choirs. So I want to use gospel because I'm in New York, and this is for the New York thing. But I want to use also classical choir, and I work with one wonderful one in Israel called Moran Ensemble. I've been working with them for years. So I called them up and said, would you be into this? Of course, they said they would. And so the choir that we hear here in the recording is in Tel Aviv, the Moran Ensemble. But as we do it live, we're using the Temple Emmanuel Choir, who are first-class singers, unreal. And they're so dedicated to this. They were really into it. And within 2 days, we were able to create this bonding, vocal and musical bonding, which the audience felt when we were on stage. But all of this would have not happened had I not met by absolute chance and coincidence on a sidewalk in Tribeca, my friend Omer Avital.
On a sidewalk.
On a sidewalk. So in COVID days, you couldn't go into bars, and some restaurants and bars allowed jazz bands to play outside on the sidewalks and pass a hat around. And here I am after some shopping, and I hear this great jazz, and I watch, and then they're passing around, and I see Omer Avital, who's perhaps one of the greatest musicians in New York City, jazz musicians, and I buy tickets to see him. I follow him for years, whether in Israel or here, and he lives in New York. And without thinking twice, as he came to me, I said, Omer, would you do a project with me? And he didn't know. It's like he was so excited to see me. He loves my music. He grew up on my music. He said, hey, whatever it is, call me. I want to do it. Little did he know. So the next day, I called Omer, and he was totally into it. He was a little panicking after that, apparently, because he realized it's a huge undertaking. Because my vision is very musical, very broad, and I know exactly what we should have. And he's going to have to play with his knowledge. And he has a huge bank of knowledge of music. He's studied for many years, and he's played with a lot of and he's got his own projects. So I had to really be, first of all, attentive to him. What does he need? Learn who he is. I don't know him. I just follow him as a musician. Got to learn. I love the person that is Omer Avital. Everybody should check Omer Avital on YouTube, on anywhere you go. It's been a magnificent jazz artist. And
wait, so you didn't know him at all? You just heard him on the street? He knew you? Or you knew him already?
I came to his concerts.
Okay, yeah.
But we never had a conversation more than, hello, hi, nice to see you, thank you for coming.
This is a real good story, yeah.
Now I'm going into his studio, and I'm going to sit with him for hours and days on end during COVID.
Right.
In Brooklyn, I travel about an hour from my home, and we build this. He comes and he says, "What do you think about this?" And he plays some Tchaikovsky oriented or something, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, but maybe this should go even more like 50s jazz, like Baruch is absolute avant-garde jazz, bebop years, from the late 50s, early 60s. We're talking about Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, John Coltrane. And there's a lot of that in there. And then there's, of course, some of them are leading towards my Spanish love for Spanish music and flamenco, which I borrow from so much. And Lechadodi is definitely klezmer, but also has this Israeli thing. And I wasn't even sure that I'm going to be singing all the prayers. I thought we'd bring in guests. I thought I would do that. But all the musicians that Omer brought in were in their mid-20s, still are. And all of them were taken by the fact that this is the first time they actually understand the prayers, because they're not sung in Ashkenaz or Sephardic or Yemen or Iraqi or Syrian or English or German tradition. They're sung in Tel Aviv tradition. My Hebrew, I'm singing them in real Hebrew. Lecha dodi likrat kala. There's no accent, there's no tonation that comes from another world, which is normally what we hear in synagogue, whether it's in Israel or anywhere in the world.
Right, it could be the lyrics to a pop, almost, what you hear on the radio. It's
what it was back 600 years ago. That was the Hebrew that was then.
Yeah, well, I love before that when you said liturgy, then you called them lyrics.
I know, it's all of it. I have to respect that it's liturgy, but I look at them liturgical purpose, but really it's the written verse of a passionate religious Jew who writes them from Safed or wherever he's from.
Right.
And now they're being played by an Israeli who speaks the Tel Aviv Hebrew, and they can relate to it right away. And it moved me. It really made me happy. It really helped me commit myself to be the one who sings all of these, and now performing live with it. Now, I can't wait. I could do this every day now, just like singing anything, Yetov, anything.
Yeah, well, so you mentioned the Baruch Hu. I hope Suzanne doesn't mind. I'm going to jump. I just loved the Baruch Hu when I heard it. It made me think of creation, with the sun. These chords are rising. And it's kind of like the sun coming up in the morning.
I thought I'm going to be excommunicated for these pieces.
Why?
But exactly, your reaction was Joshua Davidson's reaction, the rabbi, and I was so thrilled that, unbeknownst to me and subconsciously, I was delivering exactly what he's talking about when he says the Baruch Hu. And I listen, I mean, how could I know? I don't do the Baruch Hu more than maybe once a year or twice a year. So, and he does it every day, and he does it 3 times a day, and he knows what he's talking about, and it's so beautiful. Made me so.
For those listening, if I mean, I'm sure everyone's literate of the prayers on this call, but just in case, the Baruch Hu, it's the call to prayer, and it has to be done in a communal setting, so it's a big deal. So Suzanne, if you can jump over, I know I had said we would play something else, but if you can jump over that, let's hear the Baruch Hu, and then we'll still have a little time. David, maybe I'll ask you about some of other things you do, and then maybe we'll take questions if that's okay.
Everything's okay. Yeah.
Think we can get the Baruch Hu? Here we go.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך, לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד. ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך, לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד.
What happened?
In midair.
Oh, well.
Wow. But wow.
What a beautiful.
Blows my mind. I'm the one who wrote about, it's so much bigger than I would have. Yeah, it's like a prayer.
Well, it is.
All of this stuff.
It's funny. We called this program something like the intersection of prayer and performance, because coming into it, you think, oh well, people don't really, when people come in to pray, they don't want to listen to a concert, they want to be active, right. But somehow you've managed to dissolve the distinction. I don't know if you
amazing
were doing that on purpose or if it just happened.
I don't even know. I think I'm experiencing it with you as we go. I don't know.
Yeah,
I honestly, I think this answers a few questions to me about being an artist. Is just be true to yourself and don't try to please anybody but your own inner feelings and your intuitions. And if you stay on the track, there's nothing that can go wrong. At the most, they won't like it. But if they don't like it, but you loved it, then you're the winner. But if they did too, we're the winners. It's not just for me. It's for us to share, to love. And it's true about any music you do. And that's why people who go to listen to jazz, who listen to Broadway, who go listen to pop and rock, they identify with the music and it's theirs. When you go to listen to whoever artist you go to listen to, that artist is performing your love. Because you connect through the art,
right,
to whatever is going on. And so how much more lucky can I be to stand here or sit in front of you and everybody else now after almost a week since we performed this, and and know that it communicated across to a certain degree. Maybe it's not perfection yet, but you go one prayer at a time, one day at a time. It's fulfilling. It's beautiful.
Well, you're teaching us something about prayer too. That's very interesting.
I'm learning.
Yeah. So people I think would be. I'm just going to ask you. You mentioned something about previous work, and I'm going to ask you one thing about before. I think a lot of people have questions, but I'll ask you. I'm just curious. I mean, people I think are so familiar with all your other work. You have you're still performing this peace anthem. Yeah. From the beginning, is that and you also have all these philanthropies. Are you back doing all those things now?
I was doing them from my couch in the living room during COVID. I did about 150 shows. Yeah, of course I'm doing. It's taking more time. In Israel, for example, everything is open, and I'm in Israel basically every month for 10 days, sometimes 2 weeks. And we film my agenda with shows, some very big shows, some not as big, it could be 400 or 500 people, others thousands of people. And sometimes with a huge band, sometimes a smaller band, sometimes just me and the guitar. I do it all. And over there in Israel, every day is fully booked. Here in the States, it's taking more time for performing arts centers and for Jewish community centers and universities to open the theaters. The clubs are open all over, so all my jazz band musicians are on the road, and some of the biggest bands are on the road. But in the middle, it's harder to cater, I think, outside of the big cities. So I'm taking what comes, and frankly, I've been so taken by Tefila now, and surrounded by all these dozens of musicians with whom I work, and my connection with Omer Avital and his group of musicians, that we have a lot of work ahead of us, even just to maintain the level of performance that we recorded in and bring it to the stage every time. So I'm busy, and I'm writing new music every day, and I'm recording new music, and I'll be putting it out as singles. In September, I want to do something which will be a homage to Leonard Cohen, and we'll do something about him, and then later on about other artists, and I just keep busy.
It's a good time for you. It looks like. That's great.
I'm very happy. Thank you.
So I think there are a lot of questions.
Okay.
So Dan, do you want to? It's been. I'll just say it's been a pleasure. So maybe I'll come back in at the end. But
of course you'll come back. Yeah, we're not done, Amy.
We're not done. A couple more questions to Dan.
Thank you so much. That was so great to listen to and to hear all about that. To start off, though, people want to know where they can get the music if they're not able to go to the service. I know it's on Spotify. Is there anywhere else?
I think all the platforms, Amazon, Pandora, iTunes, everywhere. They can purchase it, or they can just hear it on whichever is their preference. YouTube, it's out there. It's really for in any. We did not produce CDs because there's nowhere, people don't have anywhere to play. I'm considering, as we progress with the shows to make vinyls of this, because I think it'll have a real, it ought to be listened to on a vinyl. And yeah, I hope people can come to the Temple Emmanuel on the first Friday of every month. It will be doing June 3rd and then continue as of October 14th all the way to June again. So excluding July, August, September will be every first Friday of every month.
So do you think at some point maybe you'll do this? I know you had mentioned at the beginning that Temple Emmanuel is gearing this for 21 to 39-year-olds, but there's clearly an audience beyond that age group. Do you think there'll be an opportunity?
No kidding.
I sure hope so.
So I will say that a lot of people are saying they'd like to come hear it, and they're not necessarily in that age group. But why do you think it is so important, this project, for that particular age group?
That's a good question. I think this is something that Temple Emmanuel has decided, and I think it's a valid project way of approaching and getting revitalized and enlarging and appealing to a younger audience, which is the future families that will hopefully see value in what the services, and value in getting together as a congregation, and value in everything that's to do with the Jewish community. Yeah, I think it's cool. I'm by the age group that they're aiming at. I'm obviously a generation before that, but I'm thrilled to be able to appeal, and I hope they succeed, because it's not just the music. They also open the congregation for after party. After the show, there's a party, and the first one was with Solomonov, the great chef from Philadelphia, Zahav, who catered, and in June it'll be another great chef, maybe from New York City. And as we go on, they apparently with every one of these performances, they're going to cater to all of them, so people can mingle, get to know each other. Maybe fall in love with each other, I don't know, and continue coming to this amazing project. And we definitely, and I know that there will be requests from all audiences across to open the doors for every age. So maybe eventually Temple Emmanuel will. If not, we'll just stand on the sidewalk and do it.
It's definitely a whole new way to experience Shabbat and the oneg afterwards.
Totally.
It sounds like the food's a little bit better than the Stella Dora cookies that people would have after service.
Exactly. No, it's unreal. I actually hung out a little bit after, and the food was spectacular. I mean, it's finger food, but spectacular. It was so delicious, and the drinks and everything.
Mm-hmm. How would you compare your music to liturgical music of others like Craig Taubman, who have taken the music from services in a different direction?
Well, there's Craig Taubman, there's Danny Massing. I don't think there's a comparison. I think it's about every personality brings out the best in himself, and writes what he feels is his music. I know that he was much more of a pioneer than me in this, having written a similar service for Los Angeles congregation. Since I've never dealt with this before, I don't know. Craig does have an affiliation to prayers and to religious music and to congregations, as Danny Massing is the master of masters of writing liturgical music. And I actually turned to him before releasing it, because I wanted somebody to check my pronunciation, just to see if I fell far from the tree, or am I close to the orchard, And he was thrilled. He gave me a few tips, so I corrected some stuff. Very valuable tips. What can I say? I think I'm now in the family of those who are dealing and writing and written liturgical and prayer music. And if my music will be embraced by this world, then I can't be happier.
Mm-hmm. And who are some of your musical influences? That's
easy. To start with, as a young boy, it's funny. I listened to what was going on at home, but there was a lot of American folk music. My mother was like Israel's first folk singer. Her name was Sharona Aaron. So she would listen to a lot of folk music from around the world, a lot of American folk music. And then my aunt was a painter, and so she would listen to all the avant-garde jazz, you know, the Charlie Parker and Miles Davis and John Coltrane. This is really what I listened to until I was about 14 when I first heard Otis Redding, and then I heard, you know, Jimi Hendrix and the band. They were huge inspirations for me as a child, although I never wanted to be a musician, but they were the music I listened to. And then I created my own jazz, my own garage band, and we started playing the Doors and Hendrix and all that stuff. And it was way later, when I was 22, that I started writing my own music, with my first song being Yeh Tov. And
That was your first one.
Yeah. First one I recorded.
A poem, right? A poem by a friend?
That it's a poem. The Yeh Tov was written, the lyrics were written by Yonatan Geffen, the great Israeli poet who's become my closest friend since then, all these years. And we've written multiple songs together, but that was our first one. And it was obviously the song of the times, because it was around the visit of President Sadat of Egypt to Israel and the start of the peace negotiations. So it became anthemic. And I still sing it, sometimes 3 times a day, as many times.
Do you think people are looking to that song for, you know, optimism, or, you know, the same things they're coming to you for in the prayers?
It's optimistic. Of course it is. And if we don't have that, then you know, it's not good enough just to look at the candle burning, because that will also burn out. You got to keep lighting the fire. You got to keep lighting the fire, the flame. The flame's got to go on, and it makes me feel good, and I'm happy to sing it as many times as I'm asked. It's funny, because when we were doing the COVID times, and I'm doing, like, as I said, over 150 shows from the living room. And later on, I would hear from my neighbors that they're lying upstairs in bed, and they're hearing somebody, oh, here's that song again. Here's that song again. What is that song? You know, you keep on playing that. It's like, and I had to explain, you know, well, but no matter who I play for, no matter where in the world, I'm being asked to play that song. Even if I play another hour and a half, I have to play that song. Yeah, but we hear it from the walls. It's like, we recognize the sound coming, and there's no microphones, you know, I'm just playing in front of a telephone.
That's New York for you.
There you go. It's fantastic.
The guy upstairs is playing a world famous song. You know?
Can you spend one moment and just tell people, people would like to know about your 1 Million Guitars project?
Oh, I'd be honored to. So, you know, in 2013, I did an album called East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem. A beautiful album, which I recorded in East Jerusalem in a Palestinian studio belonging to a very prominent Palestinian band called Sabrin. And I brought in Steve Earle, the great Steve Earle, American singer-songwriter, to produce it, thinking, you know, I'm Israeli, I'm going to bring in Palestinians with my Israeli band. Let's have a neutral guy who doesn't know, not involved at all, and let him tell the percussionists, don't play like that, so they won't feel like, oh, the Israelis telling me, or the Palestinian telling the Israeli, you know, just be the right group of people. And while working there at midnight, when everybody would go to sleep, there was a duo of rappers Palestinians who came from the only refugee camp within Israeli territory, which is annexed with East Jerusalem. It's called Schwartz refugee camp, which is a really violent and very, very tough neighborhood. It's an area where there should be maybe 5,000, top 10,000 people living, and there's 80,000 people. So it's really very, very hard conditions. And those guys were spending the days with us and then going home to the refugee camp to sleep at night. So one night I said, can I take a ride with you guys, like midnight, and show me where you live? So we went in, and this started a relationship for me with the refugee camp, and especially with the kids between 5 and 15-year-olds, who I started giving all kinds of seminars and music. I would give them lessons. And they gave me, the camp gave me a building where I could do it. I was filming everything, and this also became part of my film, East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, which Netflix picked and showed, and now it's on Amazon and other, Hulu, and I don't know where else. You can see East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, the film. As I was walking down the street in New York City, a guy saw the film, shouts across the street, Broza, yeah, who are you? You should be giving guitars to those kids. Those little kids, I gave them garbage cans and stuff because I taught them how to drum. And he was right. So I was thinking, okay, what do we do? I challenged him. I said, look, you can holler all you want, but you better come and talk to me seriously. Let's have a coffee. And we became partners. He forced me to open my own foundation. And he said, call it 1 million guitars. And I said, okay, and then what? He said, give guitars. And what guitars? So I pulled myself together and I designed a guitar, which is very similar to my guitar. And I raised money through corporations. I still do. All the time I need to, because I manufacture the guitars and I give them away to kids in underprivileged neighborhoods. Now, in the United States, we're up to 3,300 schools that will receive these guitars. We haven't arrived in 3,300 schools because we don't go and give just one guitar per class. If there's 24 kids in the class or 30, there'll be 30 guitars. And the kids are 4th and 5th graders, they're given a curriculum that they're taught. They have teachers that teach them how to play instruments, and they play these guitars. If the kids stick with it for 2 years, they get to keep the guitar for life. And the guitars are cool, very sexy guitars, amazing. In Israel, we got an amazing grant from a family, from a fund in Canada, that has enabled us also to employ the teachers. And so we're going from school to school, whether it's the Israeli Jewish schools or the Israeli Arab schools or Bedouin schools, in little villages all over the country. And as a matter of fact, on June 7th, we're actually bringing a conference day, and we're busing almost all the kids, right? I mean, right now there's over 600 kids have signed up. They all own the guitar. They all have my guitar. And some of them are Bedouin kids. Some of them are kids from Sderot, next to Gaza. Kids that actually the families don't have the ability not only to buy an instrument, but to give the child classes. So we've convinced schools to put it in their curriculum during the school days. And it's becoming like the thing. And all I have to do is continue raising money and making sure that we can, each guitar, it used to cost $70 a guitar, but since the COVID, with all the transportation, it's almost doubled. So it's about $120 I manufacture these guitars. I send a guy from Israel. He sits in the plant in China and makes sure that we use the best wood and everything. It's beautiful guitars. And these are guitars that will last. They don't fall and break. They're really sturdy and have a great sound. So we'll continue. We're into our 4th year, and I can't wait for more and more kids. And when I've been to Arizona and in California and in Nebraska and in Michigan, they're all over the country. We have kids play, and we connect the kids too. At some point, these kids will be part of the Million Guitar family. They can look each other up because every guitar has a passport number. We know where it is. That's cool.
Thank you for sharing that. And when I send the follow-up email to everyone, I will include a link to your organization as well.
Thank you.
So people
Thank you so much.
check that out. Unfortunately, we have to go, but I do want to ask
where are we going?
Question.
This is virtual.
What else would you like to? I mean, I have one wrap-up question, but I'll ask you another question. Actually, somebody asked: is there a difference in the way that Jews in America approach Shabbat services versus in Israel? And how do you think Israelis will respond to your latest endeavor?
A great question. So I think it's very. I think every community has its own way of approaching. There's no general way of approaching, but depending also on whether you're Reform, Conservative, or Orthodox. But I do think that the diaspora holds the prayers more as a bonding and a relevance to life, other than being an American, let's say in America, being a Jew. What do you mean you're a Jew? So those who practice, the prayers are a very big part of that. And in Israel, there's more of, I guess, casualness about it, because you're in Israel, you've been redeemed, you've lived the redemption, you're a free Jew, blah, 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 all that. But in today's environment, there's more and more importance given to the prayer. To tell you that the Israelis will embrace what I have presented, I had a beautiful conversation and an interview yesterday with Shabbat, which is the national radio in Israel, and he couldn't he just couldn't stop raving about the freshness of it, the newness of it, the Israeli approach to it. So there is a chance that it'll be embraced and accepted. I want to perform at least for 1 year, Temple Emmanuel and wherever else we'll get to. And at some point arrive in Jerusalem, you know, at Sultan's Pool and set it up there and do it. I'm not, you know, I'm not feeding the audience. Like, this is not a commercial endeavor. This is really an endeavor that is guided by the Temple Emmanuel intention to bring it to people so that they can relate in a more personal way or renewed way or a younger way to the idea of praying together. And they took the happiest, the easiest prayer of the week, which is Kabbalat Shabbat. Why wouldn't you want to be in Kabbalat Shabbat? It's a beautiful moment. So I'm following the judgment of the Temple Emmanuel, and I want to thank them for thinking of me and for insisting that I can do it, because not in my wildest dream would I have thought that I can deliver something that might make, you know, or break a new ground. And so whether it's going to be received differently, there's so many Jews around the world, whether the Israeli community receives it or not. To me, if one community or one person, it does something to them, then it makes a world of a difference to me.
Mm-hmm. And I think you answered the next question of how is this, you know, this is a service and not a concert, right? So people were wondering the difference between the two, but I think you just said it nicely. So
well, also let me so Rabbi Joshua Davidson is on stage with me, and he maintains the form of the prayer. So let's not forget, this is a prayer, not the same as the 6 o'clock prayer in the afternoon, which is the Arvit of Friday night. We're doing the Kabbalat Shabbat, which is the lighter side. Now, if I get invited by the New Orleans Jazz Festival to play it, because this is great music, then I'm going to take it to that stage. Will it change the form? Will I have the rabbi with me? No, but I will probably, or maybe I will. He's a great guy. Maybe I will be the one who carries and intertwines lyrically and storytelling wise one prayer to another. After all, this is, wherever you put it, at any time of the day, from whatever stage, it is Kabbalat Shabbat.
Thank you. And to wrap up, what's it like to listen to your own music? Like when we just spent a little time before and you sat there and got to actually listen to yourself play.
Well, this is in a way a different type of, production than I normally would have done. Just like my previous one was an instrumental one. I'm beside myself when I hear it. It's beyond me, because you remember I have a great partner, Omer Avital, and all those great Israeli musicians sitting in, and American gospel and the classics. It left the nest a long time ago. It's bigger than me. I'm thrilled.
Well, thank you for sharing it with all of us. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Amy. Again, people can find the music on Spotify and other music platforms. I will send an email out. I will try actually today, so you can get the link for tomorrow's program about
nice.
Jan Karski. And we will include, I know some people asked for me to include the name of the liturgical prayer. I think it was a Catholic prayer that you had mentioned. So I'll
yes.
yeah. So, and I'll send some other links as well. So again, David, Amy, thank you so much. We will see everybody next time, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.